In this video, I'm at sort of the halfway point on the Telecaster project. I'm going to share some of the biggest mistakes that I've made in the process so far. And yes, there have been several. I've applied about 15 coats of Tru Oil to the neck at this point, and maybe actually closer to 20. I'm not entirely sure. It's thereabouts, and I consider the neck to be complete now, or done, at least the oil part. Now it needs to sit for a while before I can do anything else to it and just cure up and do its thing. So I'm going to leave that sit for about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, thereabouts. The body got its first clear coat. I'm using spray polyurethane gloss on top of a satin paint because I want a gloss finish, but I couldn't get the paint I wanted in gloss. So anyway, so it's got its first coat just to seal in the paint, prevent it from getting any dings and damages, and so far so good. I'll be ready to apply the next coat tomorrow. So hopefully by the next video in this series, the body will be done in the sense that all the coats of polyurethane that it needs will be on there, and then the next step will be leveling it out and making it smooth and shiny and all that stuff. But we're not there yet. Right now, as I said, we're at about the halfway point. The neck is halfway done, the body is halfway done, and so it's kind of like a limbo. Before I get fully into talking about the mistakes that I made, I want to remind you to please like and subscribe. Without further ado, mistake number 1. I put Tru Oil on as a finish for the neck, even though the neck was already fretted. So this is my second time doing this, and the first time went pretty well, but this time I ran into some issues. The frets themselves had gunk on them, and so that deposits some of that blackness, the black gunk, into the first layers of oil, and that has given it a little bit of a dark tint that was not intentional, and there's nothing really I can do about it unless I want to sand the whole neck down, which I don't want to do. So it's going to have a little bit of a sort of a grimy look to it, which will age well, I think, because the Tru Oil does yellow over time and sort of gets a little bit of an amber hue to it. But I probably should have used a different finish for a fretted neck. So next time, that's what I'll do. Now, the second mistake that I made was in relation to the body, and it was grossly underestimating the amount of grain filler needed to actually fill the grain. If you watched the previous videos in the series, you will have already seen me work on that, and I kept working on it, and I kept working on it, and I think I put 6 or 8 coats on there altogether. But either my technique is flawed or the coats were too thin or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, as you can see, if you look carefully, there's still grain visible, but I'm going to just leave it as is now. As I said, I already coated it with the polyurethane, and I'm going to keep going. But it does look much smoother than it did when I first started out. If you didn't watch the first video, I did put a coat of paint on it first, just a very thin coat, just to sort of see how bad it was, and it was pretty bad. Just another quick reminder that you can follow the whole process and all of the processes of all of the projects that I'm sharing here on YouTube if you subscribe, and you make me happy if you do so also in the process. If you have seen my Instagram, or if you follow me there, you may have already seen a picture of this headstock that I'm working on with a decal on it. You'll also notice that there's no decal on there now, and that is because of mistake number 3, which is applying a decal to a headstock and then applying Tru Oil on top of that decal. What happened in this case was that I think the petroleum part, or whatever it is, the solvent part that's in the Tru Oil, simply tore off the actual ink part, the dried ink. It's just flaked right off, and yeah, that's not optimal. So I'm going to either put the decal on top of the oil at the end, and then it'll just sit there and hopefully be okay, or I'm going to do that and then add a top of lacquer or something on top of the Tru Oil, which is kind of defeats the purpose of the Tru Oil, if you ask me. or maybe just Google to see if there's some other way of doing this. If you have a suggestion, feel free to leave it in the comments. Those were the 3 mistakes that I've made so far. That was the biggest mistakes in the process of this guitar. But I have a good feeling about it. I think it's going to be really zonky. I don't know what that means. I'll leave that up to you to decipher what zonky is. But this guitar is going to have a lot of it. Zonk. Thanks for watching this week's episode. And if you haven't, go back and check the previous episodes. As I said, I have other playlists as well. Some suggestions will be popping up on the screen as I speak. And yeah, thanks again.